To talk a little bit about song structure because we're about to or I just put like little formatting to the playlist so I know, where I'm working, where the verses lie, where the choruses lie, and all of that kind of stuff. And I put this sheet together real quick, this little document, and I threw it in the training, so it's under the resources section. Um, a lot of new producers, because we're creative types, right? We want to think outside the box and we want to try to do this and that. And, actually, I'm going to do two verses in a row. And then, I'm not going to do the bridge is the ending or, whatever, right? You get some ideas, some creative ideas, which is great. But I would suggest when you're, especially if you're a newer producer, starting with these four types of song structures, um, just to begin with, right? So the first is just basic, the most basic song structure there probably is. And I put up here that an intro and an outro is optional. I put a lot of intros and outros in my music. You may not. You may think it doesn't need it. You may just want to hop right in with the vocals and singing that first verse or whatever, which is cool. So I'm gonna leave that up to you. But here's the basic structure. So there's verse, chorus, verse, chorus. A lot of songs today have that structure. Back in the day, like old school hip hop, they used to have a three verse structure. Normally the verses were like, I don't know, like 32 bars, and then the chorus would be like 8 bars, and then it'd be the next rapper's turn, right? That type of thing. And there were longer songs, but that's from back in the day. But a lot of modern music today, pop, indie pop, all of that, just have a verse, chorus, which is fine. There's classic. This is the way I structured this particular song that I'm working on now. I did use an intro, and I might use. I don't think I'm gonna do an outro, but I am gonna put an ending on it. But it would be verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Now, a bridge doesn't necessarily need to, in most cases when you think of a bridge, you think of it as like you change the chord structure, right? And you come out of the song for a minute and then bring it back in. By changing the chord structure, the melody, and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't necessarily need to happen, especially if you're not that familiar with music theory. You could think of it just as a breakdown, right? Just maybe the chorus is up here in energy and volume, and you just want to take it back for a minute and let it mellow out, and then bring that chorus back in, right? That type of thing. Or it could be the opposite. The chorus might be kind of chill, and maybe there's only a couple of instruments going, and then you really want to like take it up a notch and bring the energy up and then take it back to the chorus. That's a good way to think of a bridge. You're just bridging the gap. A lot of newer songs have this structure. I hear this a lot in indie pop, especially. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Sometimes there's two choruses at the end. Sometimes there's a little breakdown in there, but that's the basic structure. And then, something that's a little more classic and unique is verse, bridge, verse. I've heard a lot of, there's some Beatles songs like that and whatnot. Unless you've got a really strong verse, if you want to write a song without a chorus, just make sure you have a really strong melody for your chorus, and that, that can carry the entire song. So there's four I would choose from when you're starting out. Sometimes a song you'll just hear it a certain way and it'll just make sense to hop out of this structure, and if that's the case, use your own judgment, right? But this is just a great place to start when you're in your DAW and you're trying to format your patterns and your, all of those types of things. Like in FL Studio, for example, is patterns and playlists, and you're just trying to arrange things and trying to figure out what's going next. This is a great structure to work off of. I put a couple of rules down here, some recommendations. I'd recommend 16-bar verses, 8-bar choruses. Tend to work pretty well. 8 to 16-bar bridge, depending on the song, and the tempo. Normally, if it's a higher BPM, you need more bars in general. 8-bar intro or outro, and in most cases have an ending. So, there are some songs that fade out, but that's kind of an old school practice that doesn't happen as much nowadays. Like, a lot of people aren't fading their songs out. They actually have endings to the songs, or it transitions into some sort of interlude or something like that, right? So I would say in most cases have an ending. All right, cool. All right, so that's the structure. Let me show you what I did in FL Studio. So let me bring that up real quick. Here we go. All right. So we have, you may not be able to see me that well, but here, let me zoom in a bit. So we've got This is a placeholder 8-bar intro. I'm not, totally done with this intro, but I put a placeholder of just piano, which then goes into verse 1 right here, which is, and you can count 4 bars by looking at the shaded areas, right? Wait, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Right. So every shaded area at 90 BPM's 93, and you're in 4/4 time. The default in FL Studio would be this shaded area right here. So there's dark gray, light gray. So this dark gray section is 4 bars. This light gray section is 4 bars. Dark gray, light gray. So this is a 16-bar verse that we have going into the chorus here, which is 2 shaded areas, which is 8 bars, right? And then you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 shaded areas, which would be a 16-bar verse again, which is down here. And then we have another chorus. Let me move this over. We have another chorus here, which is 8 bars, 2 shaded areas. I put in a bridge, which is just 8 bars right here, and then back to the chorus. Most songs are around 3 to 3.5 minutes in general. And you got to think of it this way, like, people are conditioned to hear certain formats. And if things fall out of that format, it can cause somebody to either lose interest, think things are moving slow, or just be uncomfortable and kind of on tilt while they're listening to it. So this adds a kind of a comfort factor for a lot of listeners. If you put yourself in the mind of the listener, right? Things come when they expect them to come, and it helps them enjoy the song more. This one ends at close to... That might be an ending. Hold on, let me listen to the end of this. Yeah, that's an ending. And it ends right at about... Oh, hold up. 2:55, which is fine. Normally, like I said, 3 to 3.5 minutes is a normal song's duration. All right, cool. So that's what I did. In order to do that, I should probably show how I got this formatted, like from what I clicked on. So if you grab the end of this slider at the top, it will make it smaller or bigger, like that. Or you can use this zoom tool over here, but I prefer just to do this to make it smaller or bigger. Wherever this line is what it will zoom in on. So if I wanted to zoom in all the way, it's zooming in. Well, actually, it's zooming in at the beginning of the song. Hold on. I think I have to hit play. There we go. Now it should zoom in on... Huh. I lied. So wherever you scroll this, that's where it's going to zoom in. So whatever's on the far left, if you wanted to zoom in real tight here, you could just pull that in. Hold on, my DAW is updating. Here we go. Just pull that in, and it will zoom in all the way. Sorry, it's not this. It's not the marker here. It's what's on the far left. And if you needed to zoom in, you need to slide this over to zoom in on whatever section you wanted to zoom in on. But what I do is I zoom out. I grab, let's say I wanted to add another chorus to the end of this. All I'm doing is I'm using the select tool here. I'm starting from the bottom, because when you start at the top, it drags really slowly. I'll show you what I mean. So if I chose from like up here and I was going to select everything, you see how slowly it's moving down? It takes forever. So you got to start at the bottom. I'm going to choose these 2 8 bars right here. And that's the chorus. You can see there's a little bit that leads into the chorus. I'd probably add that part as well. But as you can see, it's picking up this little pattern right here as well. But what you do is I'm gonna hit Control-C. And like I said, we're pretending I'm adding one more chorus to the end. I'm going to use the drawing tool here. I'm going to put the marker right at the beginning of that new shaded gray section, but I'm going to change this from beat to bar. There we go. And that will ensure the chorus is pasted right next to this chorus. So I'm going to click V or Control V to paste it in. You can see we have a problem. We have included not only this pattern, but this pattern as well, which is okay. All you have to do when that happens is leave it highlighted, leave everything red, and right click on any pattern you want to get rid of. So right click there, and I pull it over, and now we have another chorus added on. So that's how you can format it. Just put your choruses where you want and put your verses where you want and do it that way. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to Control Z my way out of this. There we go, because I don't want an extra chorus at the end. Control Z undoes your last action, in case you didn't know that. I hope this has been helpful. This is how you format songs. So now I know what I need to work on and where it's gonna lie in the song. So next I'm gonna work on this verse that we started. It needs a little more, so we're gonna add some to that, and then we're gonna do some transitions, and then I think we're gonna be good to have this done, and we can start the assigning channels, mixing it, and all that kind of stuff. So let's move on to the next section. Hey, what's going on? I hope you've enjoyed this training. This training is just part of a larger course, so if you want to take the whole course, just go to this playlist right here. Also, if you subscribe to my channel, you're going to get a lot of information on how to get your music into TV and film. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, all of those things. Let's go.